What's up, everyone? In today's video, I want to talk about how you can answer the question, what is your greatest weakness? And that's a very tough question because, well, you want me to talk about how I am flawed as a human being while I'm asking for a job? That's a tough one. Well, in this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to answer this question so that they'll be like, yeah, this is a good candidate. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the first thing that you need to do is be aware of why they're asking this question. And the reason why they're asking is pretty straightforward. No one wants to work with a self-righteous, overconfident jerk, essentially. And they want someone that is self-aware and is humble. And therefore, it's important to convey to them that you are self-aware and humble. And that's what this whole answer is going to be structured around. And therefore, you need to say something that is genuine. You need to choose a weakness that is genuine because fundamentally, that's what they're looking for, authenticity. Unfortunately, it's got to be a genuine weakness. At the same time, you do not want to be choosing something that is very cliche, like I'm a perfectionist, or I pay a lot of attention to details, and all these things that could easily be flipped as positives, and it's just like, oh, this is the other side of the coin, because that comes across, frankly, quite phony. And that's not the way to answer this question. So definitely be sure to answer this question with authenticity, something that is genuine, showing self-awareness, humility, and just make sure that they understand that you understand what your limitations are as a human being. Because frankly, no one in this world is perfect. So having established that, the second thing you need to do is to provide examples and give some context, right? So for example, if this role has some people-facing pieces to it, and you tend to be an introvert, you can actually say that. However, it's important to know that you should not be focusing too much on the negatives, right? Especially when it comes to personality traits. So introversion is one, right? Certain jobs require you to sit down and focus a lot. And if you're an extrovert, that actually is a weakness. So you got to understand, hey, what are some of the requirements of this job on a day-to-day basis? So when you're answering this question, you can be talking about personality, or you can be talking about certain hard or soft skills, right? And just to make sure that when you're talking about the skills, it's not the core competencies. You can talk about some side competencies, like some of the nice to haves. You can talk about that as being your weakness, but you don't want to be talking about like core competencies as your main weakness. Well, that being said, if it's a hard skill that they're looking for, you can say that, hey, this is a hard skill that I don't necessarily have a lot of experience in. However, I have similar experience at X, Y, Z. And if you're able to convey that, then it would be acceptable because it's not a core competency that they're looking for. If it's a personality trait that is related to the job, so for example, it's got some people-facing stuff, you can say that, hey, I'm actually an introvert by nature. However, I've done certain things to address these issues. So as you're answering this question, make sure that you're using the STAR method. Give a situation, what's a task at hand, what's the action you took, and what's the result, right? And give an example of how you managed to overcome this weakness, which is the third advice. Really, you need to demonstrate self-improvement. What are the weaknesses that you've had? What are the things that you've done to overcome it? So going back to the previous example, if you're an introvert, you can talk about how you've managed to overcome some of these people barriers that you may have from learning how to public speak, by being active in socializing, by being involved in XYZ, just things that help you get out of your shell, and therefore it's less of a problem. The key thing that you want to convey is that this is something that I've been actively working on, I've made progress, and it's not going to be an issue for the job. So you just really want to highlight that progress on what you did to mitigate this weakness. The fourth thing that you want to do is to go back to the job and talk about the benefits of your weakness. So at this point, you've already genuinely shown them that, hey, this is my weakness, I've worked on it, and I've made progress on it. You can then lead it back to the job and say, and because of everything that I've managed to do, I am therefore a well-rounded individual to do this role. Because even though I'm an introvert, I was able to overcome this barrier and I've developed these people skills. And so therefore, while it's not my natural inclination, it's not going to be an issue. In fact, you can highlight that introverts tend to be very good at focusing on deep work. They're not distracted by people. They're able to really focus on a task at hand. And therefore, you can really hammer the fact that, hey, this is going to actually be a benefit for the role. The fifth and final thing is you need to maintain a positive and constructive tone. By framing what you've learned from your weakness and focusing on the fact that you've grown as a result of working on it, you're self-aware and that you're humble, and that you understand what it takes to overcome adversities and overcome barriers within yourself, you can therefore really nail home the fact that even though you are a flawed individual, you are a good fit for this role. And that's it. That's really how you answer what is your greatest weakness, by essentially showing that humility, that self-awareness, talking about it genuinely, really being able to frame it in a way that it's about you overcoming adversity and the fact that you've managed to do it. Tell a good story, and always go back to the idea that I talked about in previous videos where you need to have a story jukebox. So for this question in particular, find a weakness or two that is not a core competency, right? As you're preparing for the interview, create that jukebox so that when you're in the interview, you can answer it genuinely. Hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, please give it a like, share, subscribe, follow, the usual stuff. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Was this video helpful? Did it answer questions? Or did you feel like, hey, John, you're cheesing it way too much? All right, that's it. Thanks, everyone. See you around.